So that's what happened. What led to this arresting of these 7 people. You have Augustus Spies, Albert Parsons, Adolf Fischer, George Engel, Louis Ling, Michael Schwab, Samuel Frieden, Oscar Neebe. All of these were, Rudolf Schnall. All of these people were indicted on charges of murder, that they actually killed the policeman. That's what they were on trial for. They were on trial because they, in some way or fashion, whether they helped the bomber make the bomb or they actually threw the bomb. That's what these 7 men on trial thought that they were on trial for, was actually throwing this bomb. And it was actually the principle of anarchy was on trial. In the closing statements of the actual prosecutor, he said that that anarchism is on trial, and say this. It says right here. Let's see. He says, Grinnell has intimated to us that anarchism was on trial. The theory of anarchism belongs to the realm of speculative philosophy. There was not a syllable said about anarchism at the Haymarket meeting. At that meeting, the very popular theme of reducing the hours of toil was discussed. But anarchism on trial, phones Mr. Grinnell. And so basically this trial wasn't about murder, but that's what they were convicted of. They were convicted of murder. Of the suspects, 5 of them were German. One of them was of German descent, but he had been in America for over 15 years. Albert Parsons, he was an American. His grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War. He actually fought in the Civil War. He was basically as much of a citizen as anyone else. But the way that the papers portrayed this was that these were dangerous men, that they were anarchists, that they just wanted to destroy the state, that they advocated for chaos and violence, and they did advocate for violence, but they advocated violence against violence. And they basically said, if they're going to have guns, we better have guns. If they're going to have bombs, we better have bombs. Whether or not that's a good ideology to win over people, I don't know. But it seemed like at least the 8-hour workday, it did come about. Ultimately, though, Augustus Spies, Adolf Fischer, George Engel were hanged. Augustus Spies, he said, as he was hung, he said, there will come a time when our silence will be more powerful than the voices you strangle today. And then Louis Ling, he committed suicide. He was actually a known bomb maker. And Albert Parsons also, in his publication, The Alarm, he actually talked about how to make bombs. And interesting to know, I didn't know this, but the Chicago Tribune actually did the same thing against the anarchists, advocating, saying that these are dangerous criminals, and so we need to know how to defeat them at their own game. And so basically argument against argument, violence against violence. Michael Schwab, Samuel Frieden, Oscar Neebe, they all 3 went to prison. Michael Schwab and Samuel Frieden were initially set to hang also, but they said that it was the error of their ways, that they didn't want to do it anymore, that they didn't believe in it, and so the governor remitted their sentences to just life in prison. And then Oscar Neebe went to prison for 15 years, but they couldn't prove anything on him. The case against him was the flimsiest, and so that's why they couldn't really convict him of murder. And then Rudolf Schnabel, he fled. He went to London, and the prosecutors, they said that he was the bomb thrower, because obviously if he was an innocent man, he would have come and shown that he was innocent. But obviously, in this justice, we have 7 men that are convicted of a crime that they never did. So it kind of was stupid. But Michael Schwab, Samuel Frieden, and Oscar Neebe, the 3 that went to prison, they were pardoned by the next governor in 1893. So they went to prison 1886. So basically 7 years later, they sat in prison. But the next governor, his political career was over after that. So yeah.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So, so what I wanted to read was actually 3 people's the final addresses of 3 of them, just because I thought that it kind of shows everything, at least the injustice of this. Augustus Spies, he says, anarchism is on trial, phones Mr. Grinnell. If that is the case, Your Honor, you may sentence me, for I am an anarchist. I believe with Buckle, Paine, Jefferson, Emerson, and Spencer, and many other great thinkers of this century, that the state of caste and classes, the state where one class dominates over and lives upon the labor of another class and calls this order. Yes, I believe that this barbaric form of social organization, with its legalized plunder and murder, is doomed to die and make room for a free society, voluntary association, or universal brotherhood, if you like. You may pronounce the sentence upon me, honorable judge, but let the world know that in AD 1886, in the state of Illinois, 8 men were sentenced to death because they believed in a better future, because they had not lost their faith in the ultimate victory of liberty and justice. And that was Augustus Spies. He was German-born, and he was also a part of the IWPA. Oscar Neebe, he was the one with the flimsiest case. He says this: there's no evidence to show that I was connected with the bomb throwing, or that I was near it, or anything of that kind. So I ask you to hang me too. For I think it is more honorable to die suddenly than to be killed by inches. I have a family and children, and if they know their father is dead, they will bury him. They can go to the grave and kneel down by the side of it, but they can't go to the penitentiary and see their father, who was convicted for a crime that he hadn't anything to do with. That is all I have got to say. Your Honor, I'm sorry I'm not to be hung with the rest of the men. And I think Oscar Nebe's, his shows that his conviction, in that if you're really going to convict my friends of the same crime that I did, but I only get this, he felt like it wasn't fair. But it shows his deep conviction for his morals, for his philosophy. And that's definitely something really honorable, I think. Adolf Fischer, he says, I've never been a murderer. I've never yet committed a crime in my life, but I know a certain man who is on the way to becoming a murderer, an assassin, and that man is Grinnell, the state's attorney Grinnell. Because he brought men on the witness stand who he knew would swear falsely, and I publicly denounced Mr. Grinnell as a murderer and assassin if I should be executed. But if the ruling class thinks that by executing us, hanging a few anarchists, they can crush out anarchy, they will be badly mistaken, because the anarchist loves his principle better than his life. An anarchist is always ready to die for his principles, but in this case I have been charged with murder, and I am not a murderer. You will find it is impossible to kill a principle, although you may take the life of men who confess these principles. The more the believers in just causes are persecuted, the quicker will their ideas be realized. For instance, in rendering such an unjust and barbarous verdict, the 12 honorable men in the jury box have done more for the furtherance of anarchism than the convicted could have accomplished in a generation. This verdict is a death blow against free speech, free press, and free thought in this country, and the people will be conscious of it too.